It's Enemy Sidelines presented by Microsoft. My guest this week, Marcel Louis-Jacques. He is the Miami Dolphins reporter for ESPN NFL Nation. Marcel, so glad to have you on this week. It's been a crazy week. The NFL deadline has come and gone, and I think these are the two teams that are kind of relieved it's over, even though the outcome may not be what everybody wanted. So I know the GM there for the Dolphins spoke today. What can you tell us about the trade from that side of the building?
Yeah, Greer did not directly mention Deshaun Watson's name. I'm not sure if he's allowed to or not, but he was directly asked about the possibility of trading for Watson. And he said that, anytime a player who's considered one of the top at his position is available, that they're going to go for it. They're going to try to do their due diligence. They're going to do their homework on it, but that ultimately they decided as an organization that this is not something that they wanted to pursue at this time. He did say that they're going to finish out the rest of the season, and then they'll evaluate the roster come this offseason. And so the way that I took it, the way that we took it in this room, is that the door's not closed yet. I think that we are basically in an intermission of what's been a really, really long and drawn out movie or play, whatever drama that we want to call this. And I think it's going to restart once again as soon as this season is over.
Yeah. And, I think the big question is for quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, where does that leave his status with the Dolphins and his future now that there was a lot of talk about a potential trade and now there isn't one? So where does that leave him now for the rest of the season and beyond?
Chris Greer thought that this is not an indictment on Tua, that this is just a special scenario in which, again, one of the top players at his position became available. I don't know if that means they don't think Tua can become one of the top players at his position, but these next 9 games are going to go a long way toward really trying to establish his ceiling. He's had kind of an unorthodox start to his career. He's coming back from that, from the fractured hip as a rookie, coming back from fractured ribs this year. He's dealt with being benched in the fourth quarter for Ryan Fitzpatrick last year, and then the Deshaun stuff all this year. So it's really been just kind of a unfair start to his career. But as he told us, life isn't fair. So I think he's ready to move on. He's ready to put 100% of his focus into this team and into finishing as strong as they can. And I think the Dolphins will legitimately evaluate where they are come season's end.
Yeah. And with Tua missing the games with the rib injury, and now that he's back, what can you tell us about how he looks since he's returned and how much of his performance this year could be placed on the quarterback's shoulders as opposed to other factors that go on with the offense, O-line, et cetera?
Well, he wasn't great per se against Buffalo. He did put them in position. I don't know if I want to say position to win, but he put them in a decent position to complete a comeback at the end of the game before ultimately he threw a pretty tough interception kind of with his back against the wall. But those 2 games before that were the 2 best statistical games of his career, completing 75% of his passes. He had a 6 touchdown to 3 interception ratio. I thought he was playing great football. And, it does kind of bring the question about that. Okay, here he is playing the best football of his career, and they still were not able to beat the Jaguars or the Falcons. But that's not solely on his shoulders. This is also a defense that's ranks in the bottom, we'll call it bottom 4th in the league in yards allowed per game, in scoring, in third down defense, in red zone defense. There's not really a lot that they're doing well on that side of the ball. And that's a massive concern because that was supposed to be this team's strength entering the season. So it's not just a quarterback issue. And that was really kind of the debate surrounding a possible trade for Deshaun Watson was, does even a guy like that elevate this team into something that it's not? Because he played the best football of his career last season, and the Texans were still 4-12. So I think that Tua deserves his share of the blame for sure. He's thrown some pretty back-breaking interceptions over the past 3 weeks. He's still, maybe not being as aggressive as he can at times, or being too aggressive at times. So he's still figuring out that balance. But he has not been the most prevalent issue on this team. That is still their struggles on the defensive side of the ball and their struggles in pass blocking. They are, according to our pass block win rate, they're the worst pass blocking team in the NFL, and they are not blitzed very often. So it's kind of there's a lot of things that I think they could use those picks to improve this team. And I think that Tua could be the guy who takes them to the next level once the pieces around him are settled.
All right, lots to unpack there, but let's just talk about the record for a second. 1-7, much like the Texans, they've lost 7 in a row. But last year, after finishing 10-6 and narrowly missing the playoffs, a lot of people thought that the Dolphins were big contenders over there in the AFC East. So, with Brian Flores building his team, it looked like things were headed in the right direction. After the start the team has had this year, what's the reaction in Miami and around the building with the 1-7 start and where the Dolphin season is headed so far this year?
Well, if you ask players, I mean, most notably Mike Gesicki, he takes the stand right behind me every week, and he tells us we are that close. We are almost there. We're right there. And to their credit, I mean, the Bills game ended up being a multiple score loss, but Falcons loss was a last possession game. The Jaguars loss was a last possession game. The Raiders early in the year, last possession game. And when you look at some of these one score losses that they've had, you can really boil it down to, okay, they either turned the ball over in the red zone, or they weren't efficient at the end of the game. They turned it on too late. Like they're full of. It's not like they just got their butt kicked for 4 quarters in every single week. So I do think that they think the pieces are there, and that it just is going to take, as Brian told us today, it's just going to take finding the right formula. But I that the way they tell us, the way they talk to us, this team still believes in its coach. This coaching staff still believes in its players, and they do have a lot of games moving ahead here to try to kind of figure it out. I don't want to go out and say, they've got a bunch of get right opponents here, because at 1-7, there's no such thing as a get right opponent. You are the get right opponent. But they have the Texans coming up. They've got 2 games against the Jets. They have a game against the Giants, against the Panthers as well. Like, there are a lot of opportunities to right the ship coming up. And really, in situations like this, all it takes is one win to get that mindset turned around. And I think that's what they're obviously looking for this weekend.
All right. Well, the receiving core there has been banged up a bit, and a lot of Texans fans know all too well with Will Fuller how that goes. And it looks like the injury bug has bit him again, and as well as Devontae Parker missing some time. But the one bright spot for the receivers, Houston native Jalen Waddle leads this team with touchdowns. He's got 3 touchdowns. He leads them also in catches. What about his rookie campaign? Are you surprised at his ability to really step in as a rookie and step in for some guys who have got some big names and done some things in their past? And what do you like so far about the rookie wide receiver?
Yeah, I don't know if his success has come as a surprise. They traded up to 6 to go grab him, and you don't do that unless you think a guy can be an instant impact type of player for you. He's undoubtedly been Miami's most reliable receiver, if for no other reason, and he's played every game. He's been durable enough, and that's something this core has struggled with. I am a little surprised at his usage, however, not the target share, not the receptions, but the average yards per target and the depth per target. They're turning him in a kind of a 3, 4, 5 yard at a time receiver. I think he had maybe 29, 30 yards last game. He's had a game this year where 12 catches for 58 yards. That's not what I was expecting. I thought they would be able to stretch the field a little bit more with him, and really start to see that yards after catch numbers start to grow and grow and grow by the week. But I don't think that's all his fault. I think a lot of that is the situation. Will Fuller, as you said, hasn't been healthy majority of the season. Devontae Parker hasn't been healthy a lot of the season. They're really relying on those 3 guys on the field at the same time to throw that kind of versatile look at defenses. So, until that happens, it's going to be tough to really judge his rookie season, compared to what we thought it was going to be. But I think, once again, he has been the most reliable receiver in this offense, and he's clearly going to be a big part of the game plan moving forward, whether it's near the line of scrimmage or hopefully eventually downfield.
Yeah, another reliable target and very consistent tight end, Mike Gesicki. You mentioned him a little bit earlier. With the injuries at wide receiver, do you see the Dolphins incorporating him a little bit more in the offense? What are your thoughts on that? He's got 475 yards receiving, so when he is out there, he is so productive as a pass catcher. But do you see his role growing at all, especially with the consistency that he offers? And what makes him so tough to cover?
Well, what makes him so tough to cover is he is such a speed mismatch and a size mismatch at the same time for opposing linebackers and safeties. One of those, he's too quick for a linebacker to keep up with. He's too big at 6'6", 6'7" to get bodied up by a safety. And he's got a real eye for finding the soft spot in any zone or any defense. You saw it last week, 4th and 6. Tua hits him on a 40-yard pass downfield, and that really helped extend the Dolphins' hopes in that game. Obviously, they didn't win at the end of the day, but that just shows you that they are looking for him in those critical moments. I don't know if his role is going to grow exponentially more than what it is right now. I know that, one of Tua and one of Miami's big concerns here compared to early in the season is getting its playmakers going early on in games. And you saw it against the Bills. I think Tua's first 10 passes, like 5 of them went to Devontae Parker, 5 of them went to Jalen Waddle. Those aren't numbers you'd like to hear if you maybe have Mike Gesicki in fantasy, but I do think you could expect to see him be a part of their game plan across all 4 quarters, again, because of how much of a mismatch he is to opposing defenses. And it's a contract year, man. I think he wants to be involved because you want to get that biggest payday possible. And he's proven himself to be arguably their best offensive player, period, maybe even team MVP over the first 8 games.
All right, well, let's talk about that defense that you mentioned earlier. Xavier Howard, he made big news before the start of the season, wanting to get traded, didn't get traded. He's still on this defense. And it seemed like not a lot changed from 2020 to 2021. So, what do you attribute the struggles on defense to from last year to this year? Where has been the big drop off? And how do you explain the fact that it's been underperforming compared to where they were last year?
I think that the most when you look at that defense last year, they weren't really spectacular in terms of stopping their opponents from moving the ball downfield. They're middle of the pack in yards, passing yards, rushing yards allowed per game. They were good at top 10 in points allowed per game, but where they really shine were in those crucial situations like 3rd down and in the red zone. They were actually the best 3rd down defense in the NFL last season. This year, that has completely flipped. They are actually the worst team in the NFL on 3rd down this year. So, their yards per game averages have ballooned a little bit, but again, that's kind of what they did last year. But now they're not stopping teams. They're not getting off the field on 3rd down. They led the NFL in turnovers last year. They're not taking the ball away at a high rate this year. And, that's kind of an unsustainable model to build your defense around. So until they start succeeding at the points of attack and in those critical situations, it's going to be hard for them to attain the level of play that they reached last season. Because like you said, there isn't a lot different. These are all the same guys back, more or less. You add a guy like Jalen Phillips, you add guys like, Jason McCourty, and you would think, okay, this is an improved defense. You got a defensive-minded head coach as well, same coordinator for back-to-back years. So I think it's really just kind of focused around, like I said, the critical scenarios, the 3rd down, the red zone, and then taking the ball away that they really need to improve, or else, the wheels are going to continue to fall off.
All right, Marcel, I know it's a big week for both these teams as they try to get their season turned around, but what are some of the stories that you're working on?
Yeah, well, I've got a big picture story on the past 5-6 drafts that the Dolphins have put together. See, how these players have panned out. It was obviously a major storyline. They're like the Sixers of the NFL as in terms of acquiring draft picks. The Sixers, haven't made it all the way work yet, but they've reached the Eastern Conference Finals. The Dolphins have not been quite as successful doing that tank model. So I want to kind of evaluate what went wrong. I want to evaluate where this team's direction is now that Tua Tagovailoa is actually the quarterback, and we can actually believe what we're being told instead of whatever smoke screens are being thrown out. So, looking forward to that. And then just looking forward to getting into some Houston actual film study. It feels like, we haven't been able to focus just on the football for the past couple of weeks. And I know you guys down there are probably in somewhat of the same boat. So it'll be nice to just get on that tape and see what we're expecting on Sunday. I had a couple guys, Jerome Baker, Christian Wilkins. The first thing they thought of when asked about this Houston offense is the team speed, especially in that backfield. So looking forward to seeing that pop on tape and seeing if the Dolphins have the kind of horses to cover them.
All right. Well, looking forward to it, Marcel. Appreciate the time. Glad the trade deadline's behind us. We can focus on football again. Appreciate it as always. And looking forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for watching, and go Texans. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for new content.